He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
Hello there, kia ora, and welcome back to the Music 101 interview podcast. I'm Charlotte Ryan and I host The Music Show on RNZ every Saturday afternoon, called Music 101, and this podcast is like a feature of our best interviews that we played. And for today's podcast, you won't regret it a bit because I'm speaking with Chris White. The name may not ring a bell, but he's an incredible saxophone player who's performed with some of the biggest stars, rock stars, and performed on some of the biggest stages in the world. He actually trained as a jazz musician back in the day and then started sort of playing rock and roll and blues and pop, which led him to play alongside artists like, get this, Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, Joe Cocker, and Tom Jones, just to name a few. But it was on his 30th birthday he played the legendary Live Aid concert at Wembley Stadium with Dire Straits. And then in 1988, performed for Nelson Mandela for his 70th birthday concert with Eric Clapton. Chris White's CV is extraordinary, with so many huge names. But the time and the band that he spent most with that has really influenced the rest of his life was that he joined Dire Straits for 10 years, including on their last tours. In fact, Chris is bringing the Dire Straits experience to New Zealand in October, playing 3 shows in Wellington, Auckland and Christchurch with a full band. And so I wanted to talk to him about his time in Dire Straits and what motivated him to create a new band and tour the Dire Straits experience.
Charlotte, hi, it's Chris White.
Oh, Chris White. Where in the world are you at the moment?
I'm in the UK. I live in Cornwall, which is southwest, almost the most westerly point of England. So right by the Atlantic, actually.
How much of the year would you tour with the Dire Straits experience, do you think?
Oh, a lot, actually.
Yeah.
It's probably over half the year, one way and another. This year, particularly because we're on our Shiver in the Dark World tour, and delighted to be coming to New Zealand. But yeah, I'm not home as much as I might like to be, but I love doing what I do, so that's okay.
Of course. Well, it's in your blood. You have toured with an incredible amount of bands, including playing with Dire Straits for many years. It was 10 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, with Dire Straits, and I was working with Mark for a few years before that on some other projects that he was producing, actually.
Dire Straits have to be one of the biggest bands in the world. I mean, they've sold, millions and millions and millions of albums. What was it like? And when you played with them, that was almost like the peak of their career. What was it like to play to crowds that size?
Oh, it was incredible. So the Brothers in Arms tour was the first time I went out with the band. And it started out like other tours, really. We were playing venues of a certain size. They were good size. And what happened was as we got going, the album really took off and things got moved around. So suddenly we were playing much bigger venues. And, instead of sitting in economy on the plane, we started sitting in business and things like that. So we knew it was getting better. And it was great to play. Some amazing memories, actually, of playing big concerts during that tour. It was just a great time, really great time.
What was your role in Dire Straits? Because I know you're an incredible saxophone player, but did you also do backing vocals and a bit of percussion too?
Yes, that's right. I did backing vocals and a bit of percussion and quite a bit of running around the stage, which I think might have been why they had me in there to start with. Yeah, all sorts of things. A little bit of keyboards now and again as well on some things. Which was great for me, suited me down to the ground. My main thing was playing saxophone.
Yeah. And what do you mean by running around the stage? Were you sort of just like not a hype man, but, you just were creating energy?
That kind of came very naturally. I was on the Brothers in Arms tour. I was in the band with Jack Sonney, American guitar player, who sadly passed last year, who was a really firm friend of mine. And we were both pretty excitable. Would get carried away and run across pianos and things like that and do silly things occasionally. But the people seem to love it. The manager absolutely loved it, actually.
It sounds like it was quite rock and roll behaviour. Was it, like, without being cheeky, was it sort of sex, drugs and rock and roll, as they say?
Um, it might have been.
Yes.
The thing is, the band, it was a really happy band, which is not that usual. Often there are some difficulties here or there, but that tour and that band, Brothers in Arms, was just so happy. Every night was a real joy, a real party, actually. We all had a great time.
You played the Live Aid concert at Wembley Stadium too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was incredible.
Yeah, tell me about that, because I still watch videos from that concert in awe.
Do you?
Yeah.
It was amazing. We'd started the tour, and then there was, there's going to be this charity thing. That we were in the middle of a run of 13 nights at Wembley Arena, which is across the car park from Wembley Stadium. So 13th of July, 1985, that day we went in early and went into the stadium instead, which was just an amazing atmosphere. The audience was the people were coming in, but backstage it was just anybody you ever thought you might never meet was there. It was incredible. Wall-to-wall musicians and artists, but pretty chaotic as well. They was just trying to get people on and off stage was pretty mad. We played our set at Live Aid, and then when we'd done that, we just walked across the car park and then started our own show in the arena. And what was really cool was that as people were finishing at Live Aid, they also walked across the car park and joined us on the Dire Straits show that night. So quite a few people came up and got up on stage and played along with us, which was very cool. Oh. It was also my 30th birthday that day. So it was the best birthday party you could ever have.
Have you ever topped that?
No, I've never topped that. No, it'd be really hard to top that, yeah. I think.
You were also there when Dire Straits decided to call it a day. What was the energy in the band at that time? Did you sort of pick up Mark Knopfler was sort of considering, or he wasn't happy?
I think, no. I mean, I was sorry that it stopped, but I thought it was the right thing. He's a very creative man, Mark. He'd done just about everything he could with the Dire Straits lineup. It got very big. The on every street tour, we were 9 people on stage. It was kind of quite a big thing to wheel around the world. And I think he wanted to do something a bit more intimate, really. So he started writing other stuff, using other players. I mean, he asked me to play on some of his solo stuff as well after that. There was no big bust up. It's not like Oasis. There was no punch up in the band room or anything like that. It was just a considered thing. Mark wanted to do something else, and that was fine. And everybody drifted into other things. It felt pretty right to me in a way. I mean, I understood it. I understood why he wanted to do other things.
And so from that point, when did you decide to create the Dire Straits experience and take it on the road?
I didn't, is the answer.
Ah.
Well, what happened was I was asked if I would put a band together to play Dire Straits stuff for a charity concert at the Royal Albert Hall in London. Actually, I didn't think it'd be possible because I didn't think you could get anyone to cover what Mark did, because Mark was out of the country doing his solo stuff. So put a band together, and it was just for one night. That was all it was. The show sold out. It was very well received. And in the weeks following it, I was getting calls from people saying, do you think you could come and do that somewhere else? Do you think you could come and do that again? So we did a few more, and then a few more, and a few more. And here we are now with the Shiver in the Dark World Tour.
Did you have to get permission from Mark to play his songs?
I emailed him and said, look, I've been asked to do this, just to let you know, are you cool with it? He wrote back and said, no, it's great to do charity stuff. I wish you all the best of luck. The truth of the situation is when a record is released, it becomes public domain, so anybody can play it. Mm. There's a system of paying royalties back to the composer, which is absolutely right. Mm. But yeah, no, Mark just said, yeah, good luck with it.
And do you ever still work with him now? I actually interviewed him, must have been just a couple of months ago, for his new album, which I love. Yeah.
Great. No, I haven't worked with Mark for ages. I've been off doing this. He's been off doing his stuff. So I haven't spoken to him for a while. And I'm glad you've spoken to him, actually. I heard recently that he might not be doing as much live work.
Yeah, he said in the interview actually that he won't play live again. He insinuated
It's a
that
shame.
he wasn't very good at playing guitar anymore.
Huh.
Yeah.
I've seen some clips of more recent stuff, and he's clearly, maybe there is something like arthritis. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very. I'm really sorry about that, actually. But yeah, he was clear. He was not playing the same way. Still sounded like Mark and still sounded great. But I think, yeah, no, I've heard that he's less keen to be out doing it now.
Yeah. So tell me, I'm sure it changes all the time, but what is the Dire Straits song that you just love playing?
Everybody asks. I can't pin it down to one. I love Telegraph Road. I love Private Investigations. I love Brothers in Arms, actually. I love playing Romeo and Juliet because I get to play quite a bit on that, which is lovely. I really enjoy Your Latest Trick as a sax player too, because there's loads of saxophone in that. But to pin it down to one, I don't think I can. I'm sorry.
What do you play when you say you play a bit in Romeo and Juliet? I was actually just listening to that because I read that you play in Romeo and Juliet, and then I was listening to the original, and I don't think there's any sax in there.
No, there's no sax in it. This is one of the things about Mark, which was great. We were in rehearsal for the Brothers in Arms tour. I always loved Romeo and Juliet, and I always thought I'd love to play on that. We were in rehearsal. I was standing there while Romeo and Juliet was being rehearsed. And Mark, it was just one point, Mark stopped playing. The band carried on. So I just picked up my horn and started playing along. And Mark kind of looked at me and I thought, oh, and he sort of half smiled. So I thought, okay, I'll carry on then. So I carried on. And at the end of it, he kind of looked at it and went, well, I think we'll have that. So suddenly there was saxophone in Romeo and Juliet, which suited me down to the ground.
I bet. Do you think that the saxophone, I love the sax, and whenever a saxophone comes into a song, it just brings it to another level for me. But do you think it's celebrated as much now as an instrument, do you think?
It did go out of fashion, I think, for a while. There's some new stuff here in the UK, which is not the most commercial, so you kind of have to dig it out a little bit. But there's a lot of stuff going on, which is now using saxophone again. There's quite a bit more of that being used, which I'm really, really pleased to hear. That period through the 80s into the 90s, saxophone was definitely in vogue during that time, I think. It was very lucky for me. I was very happy that it was.
So, geeky question, but how many saxophones do you own, Chris White?
Yeah, 7 or 8, not that many. I don't collect them. I have the tenor sax, which I use, which is the one which is the main horn. One of my saxophone teachers sold me when I was 17, and I'm still using it now. And I think it's a great horn. And I kind of think we were destined to be together, if that makes sense.
Oh, look, Chris, it's such a fantastic opportunity to talk to you. And I'm so excited about the Dire Straits experience coming to New Zealand, playing in Christchurch, Wellington and Auckland. People still rave about the last time you were here, I think 6 or so years ago. So I'm sure the shows will do very well.
I hope so. I really hope so. We're all very excited about coming back. Thank you, Charlotte. Really appreciate your time.
I was speaking with Chris White, saxophone player for some of the biggest names, Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, Joe Cocker, Tom Jones, but of course I spoke to him lots about Dire Straits. He's bringing the Dire Straits experience, a Shiver in the Dark tour, to New Zealand, Christchurch, Wellington and Auckland. Thanks again for listening to the podcast, and make sure you tune in every Saturday afternoon to RNZ National to listen to Music 101 live. But until next time, take care.